You're welcome back, and it's time for us to do AM Talk. We're very honored to have with us the Member of Parliament for Kaikwe Central. He's also the Deputy Minister for Sanitation and a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee of Parliament. And an old friend of mine, actually. Good to see him again. Patrick Boamah is our guest this morning. Looking great, Patrick.
Thank you, Kojo. Fine. Happy New Year.
Same
Good to see you.
Always
God bless
great
you.
to see you. Bless you too.
Sure.
Right, well, oh gosh, we've got a lot to talk about, but the one particular reason why we're excited you could join us is because of the ongoing, shall we call it, situation between the Ghanaian government and the American government in terms of the compliance with that international treaty regarding the deportation of citizens. We'll touch on that and spend a bit more time on that, but while we have you, you know, quite a lot has been happening in the past weeks, you know, from some very unfortunate killings to kidnappings, and then just last week during the by-election we saw that despicable display of violence, and we're still trying to understand how that all unfolded. But I wonder how you have observed these events recently.
Thank you very much. Happy New Year to your viewers. Good morning to my constituents, and wish the multimedia group a pleasant year. Kojo, I can tell you for a fact that there's been some isolated cases of violence across country, and I believe that, and I use my word, I choose my words carefully, that they're isolated. Let's start with the Ayawaso issue that you just raised. I was on the ground throughout the campaigns and throughout the election period. And I can tell you for a fact that Ayawaso has over 130 polling stations. And I'm saying it's isolated because this incident happened in one polling area. It's unfortunate people got injured in the aftermath of the melee that ensued. But I think that all in all, it was a peaceful process from the Santana market that I visited, from Abelenkpe, Jowulu, President Kufuor's Lane, Airport West, some parts of East Legon, Gimpa, and where I visited. Could you let me put it on record that every violent process must be condemned. I must put it on record that I believe that I serve in a government that will not condone violence. But the fact is that most of the time you can't, as a government, on the spur of the moment, control certain processes, that you cannot read what somebody intends to do. So when it comes up, we take a position and speak as government, and a responsible government, to condemn any act of violence that occurred during the process. And I believe that government will take the necessary steps to look into the matter. Last week, there were calls by the minority in Parliament during the business statement for the National Security Minister to appear before the House. It's a good call. There were calls for the Interior Minister to also brief the House on the Ayawaso election. It's a good call. It brings about confidence and let people feel secured during elections and after elections. So I believe that it was an unfortunate situation. I've been briefed by my constituency executives that one of the affected gentlemen is a known friend of mine, H, in Abeka, and I wish him a speedy recovery. I wouldn't want anything like that to happen to a constituent or anybody in this country. So I believe that the commentary, the statements from the former president, the Peace Council must all be evaluated. And the question is, where do we go from this position? Is it a case that we'll be going into elections where there will be uncertainty at polling stations? No. I believe that there ought to be some constant engagement between stakeholders before the 2020 general election, and it has to start now. Media coalition, debates, positive engagements between all stakeholders to ensure that the term that we've coined for ourselves as the beacon of democracy, it's not just a wishy-washy statement, but a statement of fact.
Let me ask you this. I mean, you've talked about how important it is to discuss where we go from here. But I'm guessing it's equally important to figure out how we got here in the first place. This is a unit that with masks and guns and axes strapped to their legs. These are people we haven't seen until recent times. These are people who the Minister of State in charge of national security confesses that this is a unit of their creation, national security unit of their creation. We have seen some of the individuals in this unit who have been identified as former members of the parties, now identified as vigilante groups. They are now finding themselves in these organizations. They have been given status, if you will. That's how we got here. Is this not a dangerous slope we are venturing down?
Kojo, I thank you. I know you read a lot, and I want you to look at the Securities and Intelligence Act and also find out what the state security apparatus can do. Yours is to probe and find out whether this group has legitimacy under any legislation or law. Then you can arrive at that point and say that this is an illegal institution or unit within the state.
That's not my suggestion. Forgive me. I'm glad you've raised that so that I can correct it. I'm not suggesting that they are illegal. In fact, I think the danger is in the fact that they have been given a legal status when it appears that they are capable of acts like this. Okay, so we've seen the video. We know what they did. They were firing at unarmed people.
But you see, in Iraq, when the American soldiers attacked individuals or civilians, the state acted. And I can tell you for a fact that you have a calm security minister who would act. And I believe that if anybody has some other information to share and you approach him, he will do the needful.
But he hasn't even condemned this yet.
The Minister for National Security, or those in charge of security, they hardly talk. They will take certain actions that in the future you know that something had happened. But I have the confidence in Kandapa that something will happen, because I don't think they created the unit to do or to give the government a bad press or bad image or whatever. So if they
don't expect him to condemn what they've done?
Oh, you see, he's going to meet Parliament. He's going to brief. Definitely, when he's done his evaluation, I believe the state institution headed by him will come out with appropriate apologies or recommendation or whatever actions they have taken. So we haven't gone beyond a week. Let's give him space. We can always ask him questions. I believe the minority wants him to come and brief the House. We are also happy to hear his side of the story. And my suggestion and recommendation is that the discussion has to continue, especially when we've seen some of these occurrences. It shouldn't stop. What are we going to do to forestall such occurrences in the future? Because we are not going to have only 2020 elections. We're going to have 2024, 2028, and what have you. So Ghanaians must be comfortable and confident that going to the polling station, they will just go there and cast their ballot and nothing untoward will happen. So that is my prayer, Kojo.
Okay. How did you feel when you saw them beating up a member of parliament, a colleague of yours?
Unfortunate. It's unfortunate. He lives in my constituency too, unfortunately. And he's a good friend of mine. We've spoken. I believe that we also have to be careful when we are out there, so that accounts will say, somebody didn't know how the whole thing originated or started. So let's leave it at that. I would say that it's unfortunate.
Does it make you fear for your own self? Do you think this could happen to you?
Not at all. Kojo, I believe that I'm a very polite politician.
You're suggesting St. George is rude?
I'm not saying that. I can never say that for a fact. I'm saying that I conduct my affairs openly and do what I'm expected to do within the confines of the law. So I'm never afraid of anything.
You think St. George
it's only God that
brought it
protects
upon
us.
himself?
I'm not saying that
outside the law.
I'm not seized with the facts. We all saw a video. As to how it started, you and I don't know, or you and I were not there.
So how do you know you are protected just by being calm and law-abiding?
I drive myself. I don't have a policeman. I only have my God that I move around with. So that's enough for me.
Well, let's talk about this international situation that is brewing. It's interesting, it's fascinating, because we don't often see diplomacy carried out in the public eye. Usually by the time we get to this point, so much has been done through back channels. And you are a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, and you just have extensive experience in foreign relations, just anyway. So tell me how we got to the point where the United States is giving us ultimatums.
Foreign relations, I'm sure you always listen to media briefings by foreign relations experts. And there's the use of this word, ally. Americans and the Ghanaians are allies. We've cooperated in different areas, from security, economic, and education, and other areas. So when it gets to this point, you ask yourself, what am I getting from my ally? I had the opportunity speaking with a top official from the U.S. Embassy yesterday on this matter, that they wanted to explain the rationale. I had read the American statement. I had listened to the new ambassador, and I wish her well, Stephanie Sullivan, Mrs. Her Excellency. She is more than a Ghanaian. She's been here. I've known her since 1997. And she's Ghanaian. She loves us, and it's unfortunate this thing is happening during her tenure, because it started during the period of Ambassador Jackson.
Yeah.
So, Kojo, I know that the Americans are not comfortable themselves with the happenings, but they had to act because Washington had decided. Question is, you want to bring back home 7,000 alleged Ghanaians. The Ghanaian authorities have been cooperating with you. You've been visiting those who are in various detention camps and what have you. The Ghanaian officials are saying that let us go through the proper verification processes, because some of them, we believe, are not Ghanaians. Secondly, those you are interrogating entered the United States of America legally. Through your verification processes, you'll be able to identify whether they were Ghanaians or other nationals, or they came to America with fake documents and what have you. We've cooperated. We've cooperated on different fronts. Recently, the government took a hit, a serious hit, because we had cooperated with the Americans in setting up a training camp or a military base, quote unquote, in Ghana. We've cooperated in various areas.
That's true. I mean, you make an important point about the history of cooperation. But this is a matter of an international treaty to which many other countries have signed. And the treaty says, within 30 days, provide the travel documents for your nationals to return home. Within 30 days. Now, we've heard the response of our government, and they've actually outlined a number of things they've done. And they've said, look, there were 28 that you've brought to our attention. This is how far we've gone. We've spoken to 19 of them, 11 of them Ghanaians. We've sent them back. 8 of them, well, some of them have court cases. Some of them we're still trying to determine whether they're Ghanaians. And then, of course, there will be another 9 on top of that, which we are yet to interview. But my question is, those 11, for example, was it within 30 days? The 8 that we're still looking at, have the 30 days lapsed for them? How about the remaining 9 that we haven't even interviewed yet? Have the 30 days lapsed? Have we violated the international treaty? Forget the American law.
It's American domestic law that is being applied. And 30 days, they also enjoined to follow due process. The Americans are also enjoined to follow due process because the Ghanaian mission there also represents the Ghanaian government in America. They are also enjoined to follow some laws that are applicable in Ghana. So if you are asking me to send my people out without having complied with due process, that is all that the Ghanaian government or authorities are asking for. You want us to send them back. Some have legal cases. Some are being interviewed. Verification processes are ongoing. Must I shut the door on these poor citizens, supposed citizens of Ghana? No. Because my view is that the Americans have taken a very harsh stance on this matter. And I believe, and I had a discussion with them yesterday and said that we have to, as soon as possible, resolve this matter because it's not in the best interest of the U.S.-Ghana relationship. A lot of things we are doing from the MCC, from the Defense Cooperation, intelligence sharing and others, stands to suffer if we don't resolve some of these things immediately.
Help me to understand this. Let's take the opportunity to educate. There are many who feel that the Ghanaian government's response and their argument is very reasonable. That, look, there's a process. We're going through it. So how can you tell us that we're not complying? But my question is this. When you raise the issue of how, I'll use the word unfair because I can't think of a better word, how unfair the arrangement is. So, for example, you're telling us that we must send these people back, but you don't want us to check and make sure that they are Ghanaians. You just want us to give them travel documents. You are saying that we must do this within 30 days, but it takes more than 30 days to go through these processes. If that's how you feel, why did we sign up to that treaty? Why don't we just back out of it? Say we no longer ascribe to it because it's not reasonable.
Because your treaties are entered between states. These are bilateral treaties. And you just cannot be of one incident, like what we are trying to resolve, say that I'm backing out of a bilateral relationship that has existed over hundreds of years. No.
But these conditions will always prevail, won't
We
they?
will find a way out of it. I believe strongly that we'll find a way out of this. I know the skill that the president possesses. He's going to America. I'm sure some of these things will come up. You find a way to talk to the officials there. Give and take, I don't think this thing should last more than 3 months. We should be able to come out of this matter and move our relationship forward. Because it's very important for Ghana and the U.S. to always cooperate in this area. Immigration issues, we know the Americans are very hard and tough on immigration issues, especially under President Trump.
Yeah.
So I know it's an election issue for them as well. So, well, you can oblige them, but we'll also stand firm and ensure that our citizens are protected. And I am happy with the statement from the Foreign Ministry, and we stand by them as Ghanaians.
Let's define protection of our citizens in this context. These are people who ostensibly have either overstayed or have violated the conditions of their visa or their stay in somebody else's country. Now we say we want to protect them, but does this country not have the right to remove anybody that they don't wish to have in their country, or who has violated any of the conditions under which they were welcomed into that country?
We've never denied or stated anywhere that the Americans do not have the right to enforce their laws.
Then how can we call keeping our Ghanaian compatriots there, sometimes in detention, how can we call that protecting?
The person entered the United States of America legally and went through a certain process to stay or live in America. All that the Ghanaians are saying is that you want to bring them back as Ghanaians. Fair enough. But there's a procedure that we must all agree and follow, especially when those you want to bring back are raising issues. Why don't you allow us to go through the legal systems that you've set out when some of these issues arise? Have you exhausted all the challenges that these citizens have raised? That is all that those in detention or those that the Americans want to bring back are saying. The Ghanaian authorities are not saying that the Americans do not reserve the right to deport those Ghanaians who have overstayed their welcome or lived in America after their visas had expired.
Or in some cases committed crimes. And
crimes, you follow the domestic law. So that is not our position.
Right.
Let us follow the laid down rules that we've all agreed to. And why didn't we object to the 19 or the 11 that had gone through the process? Why did we start that in the first place? Because we all knew that this was a roadmap before you can send somebody out there.
I want you to watch this. International relations expert Dr. Vladimir Nchidanso has described this development as bullying by the United States, and he's urging government to remain firm in its stance. Let's just check this out for a moment.
The persons upon whom the sanctions have been imposed are persons who are intrinsically linked to our governance system. And so in that sense, it will, if we don't comply. But it is in the compliance that our relationship are also relayed. It looks as though there is some bullying going on, and the Ghana government should have taken some other steps, because Ghana is not guilty in this sense.
So, U.S. Ambassador to Ghana says if the country is unable to take some actions between now and the coming months, it is likely to extend the sanctions to the wider population. What would you suggest we do in the meantime?
There's nothing you can do when these things are concerned. It's diplomacy, it's talk, jaw. The point is that the Ghana government could not just rush to give documents to any other person who purports to be a Ghanaian. I mean, the United States is guilty itself also of accepting people into their country, legally or illegally. Once the person enters the country, he has some kind of legal international obligation with the host country. And so the United Nations, the United States cannot tell us that they don't have documents on those persons to show whether they are Ghanaians or not. In the first place, they will have to prove that they are Ghanaians before the Ghanaian authorities issue documents. I think that's the bone of contention. And the Ghana government should stand firm on those issues.
Could this have been handled any other way?
I don't think so. The only way is what I'm talking about, that they should have judged on who is a Ghanaian. There is a possibility that there are all of them who are Nigerians, who are Belgians, who are whatever it is. The fact that they are blacks doesn't mean that they are Ghanaians. And they entered the country, that is the U.S., through some other means, through some border. There is documentation on them. Why is the U.S. not ready to give such documentation now that we end this kind of stalemate? And I think they are just bullying. They just want some people out of the country. And therefore, anybody who says that, and personally, I have experienced a situation where some people were being brought, who were in a plane. They reached Ghana and they said they are not Ghanaians. They were holding Ghanaian passports. And they were going to Benin and other places like that. So in this case, we need to seriously jaw. We could have avoided this by the U.S. also playing ball.
Quite a lot of the points that you were making yourself are being echoed there.
As if we had a chat earlier.
But I think it goes back to us trying to assess the size of this problem here. According to the Americans, there's a backlog of 7,000 Ghanaians who are all, I'm guessing, in detention, right? If they've quantified it as 7,000, they must be in the system. So 7,000 of these Ghanaians in detention. Do some of them not want to just come home? Because anything must be better than having your freedom taken away from you and locked up. When in most cases, these people are not criminals. If you overstay, you're not a criminal, are you?
To come home, you must prepare to come home. You must come to your country or your home in your free will. For the Americans to have arrived at that 7,000 figure, presuppose that they did some work, which I don't think so. Because to arrive at 7,000, where are the documents to prove that?
They've only presented 28 so far.
See. So it means that you have a lot of work to do on the 6,982 or
72, yeah.
Some figure like that.
Yeah.
So I think, Kojo, let's agree with the Americans that due process ought to be followed. We are not stampeding what is right within their laws, but that we also stand firm and protect our country, our relationship with them in accordance with international law. And that the position that they've taken is very unfortunate, it's unfair. We believe that we could have discussed this thing and resolved it like we've been doing. And the position that they've taken is not in the best interest of Ghana. We must put that fact right.
Right. Now, they have actually responded, you know, since Ghana put out its statement, foreign ministry put out their statement. They've responded. They've simply said, we stand by our position. It doesn't appear to be the attitude of negotiation. It appears that they feel that their statement is categorical and there is no flexibility on it. What's our next move?
Well, it's like filing your claim and filing your defense and somebody coming out with his reply.
Right.
Well, that brings you to the point of discussion or negotiation. I believe the foreign minister, the U.S. ambassador here, they will sit down. These things are not done in the open. Lay your cards, I lay my cards, and we'll find a solution to it. I don't think the media discussions and will resolve the matter. It's about you proving to me that these are nationals of Ghana. They've outstayed their welcome. They've committed these crimes. I don't think if they've committed crimes, that one is very simple or very easy to deport the person because they violated your domestic laws and you have the right to apply your domestic laws.
Provided they are Ghanaians, obviously. Provided
they are Ghanaians. If it's on visa or on immigration issues, yes, we have foreign service officers there who assist their U.S. counterparts to resolve it. I don't think it's anything difficult for the Americans and the Ghanaians to resolve. So I am asking the Americans to withdraw their position on this matter and come back and sit down with their Ghanaian counterparts to help resolve it.
What if you're right, though, and what if this is an order from above, from the Trump administration, which is part of a broader, you know, we don't care sort of policy that is being rolled out? What if that is the situation we're facing? Then, I mean, of what value would diplomacy be in the face of such a policy?
Well, the Ambassador, Excellency Stephanie Sullivan, wouldn't take this action if it's not U.S. government policy on immigration. And I'm sure they are doing that across country. They are looking for some 5-point-something billion to build a wall to stop the Mexicans from entering America. The wall has to be built, and it has to be built by the Mexicans, and it's a big issue there. There was a shutdown because of the war, and there were exchanges of letters between Nancy Pelosi and President Trump on the State of the Union, which is coming on. So they're also looking into 2020 and also the the campaign promise of President Trump on immigration is playing a key role in some of these policies. And you know, the Americans, they can take certain tough stance on matters. But I believe that with this on Ghana, they have not treated us fairly as allies, and they have to relook and think about their position on this matter.
Is there a cost consideration here for Ghana when we have to process these individuals, you know, give them travel documents? Does that process cost us?
It does.
And is it a significant cost that perhaps might also affect our decision to either, you know, comply, you know, wholeheartedly or not?
Oh no, the foreign service officials, they do a lot of things for Ghanaians who are in all manner of problems or challenges out there. And if you read the parliamentary reports, footballers, people who are homeless, who are tortured in various jurisdictions, they go to detention centers, prisons to visit people, interview them, and find a way to support them. Even those who are being brought back home legally, they go out there to give them money or some stipend to make them comfortable to come home to join their families. It's not about the cost. It's about the approach. It's not about the cost. It's about the approach. And we feeling that we are not being treated well, and that there's been a breach of that cooperation in terms of finding a solution to what the Americans have raised. That is all.
No, I asked you earlier, but I think we both got sidetracked and interested in some other aspect of the conversation. So we left this one behind. I asked you earlier whether, as per the letter of this international treaty, which requires us to process them within 30 days, whether we have stuck to that time frame for the 28 that we have been made aware of. I mean, you're a member of the committee, so the Foreign Affairs Ministry is under your scrutiny. Have they complied?
They have. But you see, you can comply with the 30-day rule. Somebody during that process can also raise an issue that will stop you from continuing with the process. They can also engage immigration lawyers to also speak on their behalf. That will put the whole process on hold.
Is that what has happened in this case?
In some cases, they will contract a lawyer to defend them. And that bars you, the foreign service officer, from continuing with whatever process that you might have started. So there are a lot of gray areas that we ought to look at critically. It's not cast in stone that 30 days I have to finish the process. I can start, but I could be met with an obstacle which will prevent me from continuing. You understand? So those are some of the challenges that the Americans too also have to look at when discussing some of these issues with us.
Tell us, how are Ghanaians treated in detention in America?
In America, I haven't had any reports negatively of Ghanaians being treated. You see, the Americans, you give it to them, they would not want to be seen treating nationals in detention wrongly, because they always produce reports on human rights and other activities. They may not be 100% right, but they always want to look good when it comes to human rights issues. Pre-detention, women empowerment, children, kidnapping, and what have you. There's always a global report on countries. To the extent that they come, they go to our farms, they go to the lakes, on labor issue, cocoa, child labor. They produce all manner of reports. And I've been to the State Department before. I've seen how they work. It's a big unit, and they are focused on specific issues. So it will be difficult for me to sit here to say that Ghanaians in detention are not treated well. Otherwise, our mission would have reported to us.
So now we're under a visa restriction So for
you and I.
Well, I am not a family member of anybody in the executive or the legislature. But for those of you who are, B1, B2, and then B1/B2 visas can never be for longer than a month.
A month.
How will this affect your work?
Well, definitely it's going to affect you if you are going, what you intend doing requires you to stay in America for over 4 weeks.
How often does that happen?
This is the first time.
What I mean is, how often do you need to be on government business in the U.S. for over 4 weeks?
It rarely happens for a government official to stay in America for more than a week. Is difficult. Maybe could be a study tour that will not take you more than a week. Maximum 2 weeks. You should be back. So I don't think it's going to affect us directly, but we are looking at the overall picture and the overall policy from the U.S. government.
So it'll be perhaps a bigger blow for your family members and your constituency, people who you sometimes sponsor and guarantee their travel. And,
unfortunately, I don't sponsor and guarantee
not
travels.
Not you, not you. But it is a known practice throughout the years.
Members of Parliament have learned their lessons.
Have they?
They have.
So it doesn't happen anymore?
No, it doesn't. Because, you see, what I realized was that somebody will come to you, oh, I need a letter of introduction. Then it will end you somewhere. So most people have stopped. And I've told my constituents that if you go and get your visa and you want some kind of financial support, that I can do. But to write a letter to guarantee, no, I'm not.
How about family members who are captured under this?
Constituency family members, I don't do that.
No, what I mean is the ban affects family members of employees of the executive and legislature.
I'm sure they will extend the interpretation.
Well, that's what it said in the statement.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Americans, they will extend the interpretation. And they will go 6 steps back to check. Wow. And they can check. They do a lot of work. So.
But will the 1 month limit affect, so if your wife, for example, needs to go to the U.S. now, she can't stay in the U.S. for more than a month. Are you seeing how this perhaps might affect you and your colleagues even more than it affects you personally? Because you won't officially
if you're a wife, you are politically exposed, so you stand to gain or lose. So you should bear the consequences till we resolve the matter. And I'm saying that it shouldn't take us more than 3 months to have this matter resolved.
Right. Well, Mr. Patrick Boamah, this has been a great opportunity to pick up from our last conversation, was a very long time ago. And thanks very much for the education on some of these issues. We appreciate it. I hope it's not too long before we do this again.
Very well, very well. Regards to Fifi.
I'll let you know.